just a couple of days after Harper's Ferry, the Battle of Harper's Ferry, in September of 1862, September 17th, 1862, the Civil War came to Antietam, in Sharpsburg, Maryland. September 17th, the stalemate or Union victory at one point halted the Confederate attack into the North, and it was a major impetus in Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. And here today, Juneteenth.
Antietam National Battlefield's Visitor Center describes the battle, the entirety of the 1862 Maryland campaign, the sheer size of the forces involved in this small community, and the massive impact that this one-day battle held. America's Bloodiest Day featured the full strength of Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, but the late arrival of Stonewall Jackson's forces from the longer-than-expected Harper's Ferry encounter gave ample time for the Union forces to consolidate and prepare for engagement. Just less than a week earlier, Union troops also accidentally discovered a set of Confederate troop movement orders issued directly by Lee that outlined the entire Maryland campaign, only a few days before being lost. This Special Order 191 provided critical information to assist the Union in repelling the Southern advance into Northern Territory.
These fields near Antietam Creek could be considered perhaps one of the most pivotal moments in the American Civil War. Had there been a Confederate victory here, European powers, Britain and France, were ready to provide aid and assistance to the Confederacy, recognize them as a legitimate government, perhaps providing aid in their cause in the Civil War. But the stop of Lee's advance into the North put those plans on hold and gave President Lincoln the impetus to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, then providing further political and social ramifications to the outcome of the American Civil War. Perhaps the most coveted piece of property here in the Antietam cornfields outside of Sharpsburg, Pennsylvania, the Dunker Church, ironically, built by a very pacifist religious sect of the Dunkers, related to Mennonites and Amish. But then all throughout these fields, you'll see some monuments. But all throughout these fields, near the Antietam Creek, the bloodiest day in American history. More soldiers died, wounded, captured, or missing than the American Revolution, the War of 1812, and the Mexican War combined in one day. Very somber.
An audio-video tour is also available through the National Parks app, where visitors can engage in a self-driving tour of 10 of the most prominent sites around the battlefield, as well as the Clara Barton Memorial. The eventual founder of the American Red Cross is honored on the battlefield for her dedication to helping the wounded in the fields and near the Dunker Church.
Here we're at Burnside's Bridge. On this side, across the bridge, would be the high ground that the Confederates would be holding. This bridge would be the only safe retreat back across the Potomac if needed for the Confederates. And hours of fighting just across this tiny width of bridge between the Union and the Confederates. Across this tiny bridge, so you have Union soldiers going across the river over there, the creek, they have Antietam Creek, trying to see if they can make it across, but then up the high cliffs, all within sharpshooter range of the Confederate Army. Push after push after push. And eventually the Union forced the Confederates back to where the Union can then stage their final attack of Antietam, attempting a decisive blow. Here's some more perspective from Burnside Bridge. Up here is the high point where less than 500 Georgian soldiers were up here to keep that bridge in Confederate hands. And it was really only until several hours later, from 9 a.m. to about 1 p.m., when a section of the Union Army was finally able to ford down that way, St. Snavely's Ford, to meet on the Confederate right flank right on over here to force them out. But with no trees here in the way, this high ground, the cliffs on this side of the bridge, fantastic spot for the Confederates to try to hold that bridge.
The Battle of Antietam has gone down in history mainly for being the bloodiest single-day battle in American history, and also for being the decisive opportunity for President Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring freedom to American slaves. However, visitor displays and ranger talks gave great context into Lincoln's motivations, primarily to keep the Union intact, and the limitations inherent in the proclamation. It really only issued freedom to slaves in those states in active rebellion. Still, Lincoln had been mulling this position for quite some time, but waited to issue it after a strategic victory, so that he wouldn't seem as making a move of desperation. Even if complete abolition was not Lincoln's primary motivation for the Emancipation Proclamation, it placed the issue of slavery as a major factor in European relations and the psyche of the American people.
Here we are in Sharpsburg, the actual town where the Antietam battlefield was surrounding, at the site of Tolson's chapel, constructed by the African Americans here, to where they would exercise their newly won freedoms after the Battle of Antietam and the Emancipation Proclamation, and at the conclusion of the Civil War.
Tolson's chapel was constructed by black citizens in 1866. Originally named the Sharpsburg Colored Methodist Episcopal Church, it was later renamed after its first minister, John Tolson. Serving as both a church and a school, many of the first students had been slaves only a handful of years earlier. The school served children during the day, and some adults attended at night as well. Tolson's chapel officially closed its doors in 1998 as an active church membership, but still stands today, maintained and preserved for visitors to learn and honor its heritage on special occasions like Juneteenth. Juneteenth honors the events of June 19, 1865. While President Lincoln's proclamation announced freedom for slaves, this order could only be enforced when federal troops came in contact with slave populations. During the course of the war, many Southern slave owners migrated to Texas, far from the battle lines, to evade the ramifications of the executive order of a union that they tried to leave. February 1865 saw the ratification of the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, ending the legal protection of slavery. April saw the final surrender of Robert E. Lee's troops, but it was not until June 19th that Union soldiers were able to enforce the emancipation of slaves in Galveston, Texas, informing these people that they were free, over 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Forever linked, the Battle of Antietam and the Emancipation Proclamation are vital to the end of slavery in America and the long struggle for civil rights. We had a great day in Sharpsburg, exploring the fields around Antietam Creek, remembering those who perished, and the impact of Antietam on both the national level and the human level. If you've ever been to Antietam Battlefield or to Tolson's Chapel, what did you take from it? We'd love to hear from you, so please let us know in the comments. We'll see you next time.